Good afternoon. My name is Guillermo Rojas. I am CMO Marketing Director at GPL Technologies. On behalf of GPL and Dell, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Practical Artificial Intelligence to Help Accelerate Your Business. This webinar has two parts. First, we will have a presentation and panel discussion with Dell, and then we will move on to our second part, where we are having a very exciting virtual golf tournament. We have great prizes for the top winners. So let's start. I want to introduce our host, Ryan Boswell from Dell. So let's move to him. So here we are. So thank you.
Thanks, Guillermo. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. First of all, thank you everyone for having us today. Thank you for being a part of this. And we really appreciate you attending. So my name is Ryan Boswell. I manage the data center compute practice for Dell for the United States for our regional partners. So we're responsible for all server, hyperconverged, as well as some of our storage products. With me today, I've got two gentlemen. One is Chris McCarthy, who is the data center compute specialist for the West region. Chris is on my team, and then we also have Allen Clingerman, who is our Chief Technical Strategy Officer, who really is driving some of the leading edge things that we're doing with our PowerEdge systems and really helping us drive into kind of the future with where we're headed into the workload space. So I know today we're going to be going through some fireside chat comments really on things that Alan and team have really seen around AI and things that are really making the concept of artificial intelligence practical to our everyday customer. So going to be kind of going through some questions with the guys, and I want you guys also to feel free to add questions into the chat. As we go through this, if you've got questions for Alan or Chris, please post those in chat and I will try to address those as part of it. I do have some questions teed up as well, but love to make this interactive. We've done several of these, and every time I think they're more beneficial to you guys when you actually ask questions. So I'll try to keep an eye on that chat session. So Chris and Alan, thank you, and welcome, and looking forward to this. So I actually have a quick question for Alan to start. So Alan, I know you've done a lot of these, but what in your background really kind of has driven you to kind of being an AI thought leader in your work with Dell Technologies?
Well, been quite a journey here in IT for me. And hey, I just want to reiterate what Ryan said at the opening. Welcome, and thank you for giving us some time during your busy schedules to really talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and what we're doing here at Dell Technologies and how we can help you make it potentially real and within your environment and within your industry or vertical. And I think, let me reiterate what Ryan said there. This really makes it more interactive if you can come forward with your questions around artificial intelligence and compute, right? Because they're tied very closely together. It takes high performance compute to make artificial intelligence real. But let me get back to what Ryan asked me. So I've been privileged of working in IT for over 30 years now. Came out of the military, and kind of interesting to see my technology journey there. Followed radio teletypes, thought it was very ancient equipment coming out of my early days as a programmer, even through the Science Center, working on IBM mainframes and programming on Tektronix terminals. Might be some things familiar if some of you followed a traditional journey. In fact, I remember the first time I got a personal computer, my father got me a TRS-80 because it was way before the IBM PC or Apple or anybody else came in. And I took the basic programming guide and learned it overnight. I read through it overnight and started programming the next day. And it really bled that passion for me in technology and making it real, right? Really understanding what are the practical applications for technology and where was it going to take us into the future. And that's what really led me through my entire career, right? At IBM, at Oracle, helping them build out big data and Exadata and Exalytics, through Citrix and helping build out large VDI practices, and certainly joining Dell Technologies now just over 6 years ago and really helping take our spear, really driving the company towards these more advanced or emerging workloads to help all of you achieve better outcomes with our tech.
Perfect. I know you help me every day to understand all of this much better. So I know you'll be able to help our partners and customers as well. So Chris, really kind of over to you. How did your experience really lead you into helping customers to solve things through compute in the data center?
Sure, that's a great question, Ryan. I think hopefully everybody can hear me now. But I mean, when you think about the conversations that we're having with customers, it's really kind of changed over the last decade or so. Especially in the last couple of years with all the events that have been in place in the last year and a half, especially with COVID. It's really about what we're trying to do is solve business problems and driving innovation associated to those business requirements and business problems. And the ultimate goal is fulfilling these business outcomes with the customers like yourself. I mean, the conversation really starts from where are you in this journey? Where do you need to go in this journey? And where do you want to be, or how do we get there in the next 2 to 5 years? Is kind of typically the conversation that we're having here. And everybody's heard the idea of the digital transformation, which is really application transformation. The applications are what's driving the business and the business needs and requirements. And also the IT transformation in the sense where you have to have the infrastructure that can help support these business requirements, these business applications. And on top of that, there's been such a massive growth of data. What do customers do with all the data that they have? How do they get insights into utilizing this data that they're collecting for positive business outcomes? And I mean, that's really where analytics and I think artificial intelligence really comes into the conversation. So that's really the kind of conversations myself for the last 2 to 5 years really have been having more often.
That actually brings up a good point. So Alan, what does it really mean to be a data-driven company? I mean, I hear that all the time. I think, are there some specifics that come along with that on how a company needs to drive their culture, and really what does it take a company to do that really well?
That's a lot to unpack there, Ryan, but you nailed it. That's probably, honestly, out of all the artificial intelligence questions I get, that's probably the number one thing I hear from customers, right? Is like, how do I get started? I mean, there's now we have crossed the threshold that over 53% of customers, worldwide have started some initiative, but they're typically very small in nature and they haven't permeated the organization, right? I mean, frankly, it's been the same, kind of journey for us at Dell Technologies. And you guys will probably laugh for my Dell teammates that are on the phone here with us, but I will tell you this, Dell is a data-driven company. Everything we do is measurable and KPI'd and put in a dashboard and tracked every day. We know what's going on, and we look at it from several aspects, right? And we think about it all the way through what we're trying to achieve with artificial intelligence is predict the future. And even us at Dell Technologies, we're not quite there yet, but here's what we do know. We know what happened yesterday. We know why it happened. We know what's going to happen tomorrow, and then we have levers that we can determine what's going to happen in the future, right? So we're not to full cognitive artificial intelligence, but we definitely are making great strides towards it. And so understanding it and really having that culture-led approach to using that data in a daily business and how you drive your organization in every aspect of the company, because it's not just from a sales perspective, it's the same thing from a services perspective, from a marketing perspective. They have that same dashboard and data-driven approach in every segment of the business. And I'd say every company, right, really has to be willing to put in the muscle and to build the right modern data management platform to make this successful across structured and unstructured data sets, right? And that's the toughest thing. Even those customers, we said 53% are on some journey towards AI, they typically haven't built that modern data management platform, and they're just trying to solve one specific problem in a business unit. I have to do that to uncouple the value of the data, as Chris kind of alluded to. And by the way, to achieve that, what do I need? I need cross collaboration across IT, the DBAs, the business stakeholders, the electronic data warehouse managers, the BI teams. It really doesn't matter how large your organization is. I need to kind of harmonize what's going on with IT. What are the outcomes that I can achieve with that data? And then how do I make sure that it's aligned to what the business needs, right? What is the CEO? If I went to all of our IT stakeholders, my number one question when I go in and I'm working with the CIO is, what is the business's top 3 priorities? I need to understand that to align the IT resources to meet those priorities. So it really is about that culture-driven approach, because having the platform alone is not enough, right? Even if you've achieved that, it's about IT and business, right? Being aligned and speaking the same language. Because we think about it that IT is really that infrastructure partner to help the business succeed and to really use technology as a competitive differentiator in the market, as Chris alluded to drive new lines of revenue or profit. And the leadership, right? All of the executive leaders, this is what we have to sell, right? Internally, we're working with all of our customers, helping you sell upwards, no matter where you're at in the organization, right? To get the leadership to understand and believe how these types of insights can help the business grow and really help them become a technical leader in your industry or vertical, right? To really make it real, no matter what your industry or vertical is. Because, by the way, what do we know? It's not about the big eating the small anymore. It's about the fast outpacing the slow. So what do we do to help you become faster, right? And certainly we've seen massive transformation occur because of the times we've been living in. There's been more transformation happen over the last 14 months than I've seen in the last 5 years. And that AI number of 53% was certainly not there pre-COVID. I mean, it was sub 30% in our survey. So very interesting to see how quickly people pivoted and adapted to the marketplace.
Sorry, wouldn't let me come off mute there for a second.
It has a delay. You might want to say.
That's a great answer, Alan. And then I'm like, I'm not even on video. Okay, so great answer. I actually completely agree and see that every day with the customers that we talk to. Chris, that actually brings me to another point. So Dell's really kind of the last broad spectrum IT provider, really, if you think about it from edge to core to cloud. Where does servers actually fit into all of that and the vast data center portfolio that we have to provide?
That's an excellent question. I mean, we kind of have this marketing term, we call it our innovation engine. And really from the data center perspective, servers are really where we start with innovation engine. I mean, as Alan alluded to, everything that we do is associated to the data center is really built on the server technology. And you think about our HCI platform, which is VX3, you think about storage like our PowerStore product line, and some of our data protection programs such as DPS and IDPA and things like that. These are all technologies that are actually built on our server platforms. On top of that, when we think about server technology, we kind of really look at 3 tenets, if you will, especially with the next generation of powered servers that we just launched recently. And these really go into the adaptive compute capabilities. Number 2 is really the idea of autonomy, or autonomous compute infrastructure. Last but not least is really proactive resilience or security capabilities that are built into our solutions. So, for example, with adaptive compute, we really look into things such as, when we build servers with workloads associated in mind to build these solutions, which means the innovation of things like cooling and power come into play. And the reason why those came into play, because with the processing capabilities, the next generation Intel and AMD, these things run more power and these run a lot hotter. So we have the innovations we had to create associated to that by themselves was bringing in things like multi-vector cooling capabilities and Dell liquid cooling. And on top of that, and since we're talking about innovation and the idea of AI as a whole, it's really all about acceleration and being able to really crunch those numbers and do it quickly from a compute perspective. The next tenet really is we're trying to move down that path of being fully automated in all of our solutions. Right now, there's typically about 5 levels of automation capabilities. We're kind of in level 3, which is sort of like conditional automation capabilities. This is being able to tie systems into cloud connectivity, telemetry from our iDRAC capabilities for systems outcomes and analytics and things like that. So ultimately, as we go down that path, we're going to be looking at things where we have fully autonomous systems, self-healing, self-realization systems, you know, the whole scientific type stuff. That's really kind of where we're moving towards and from our compute. And really, last but not least, is the idea of the proactive resilience, or really security. Everything that we do in all our platforms from a server perspective starts with security in mind. So, you know, you're looking at things such as a silicon root of trust, or data at rest capabilities, or, you know, secure development lifecycle. These are type of the things that are involved through the process. So when we manufacture a server technology, once it leaves the factory, there's a path or there's a log of where everything that happened to the system. So when the customer like yourself receives, you know, a server technology, they can log into the system to see if anything has been changed at all from the process of leaving the factory to their gate, their docks, basically. So those are some of the things that, you know, we built in and look at from a server perspective.
Perfect. So, Alan, I've got a harder one for you here. So this is kind of the AI chicken or egg question. So which really came first? Was it tech innovation that made AI more pragmatic, or was it the business demand for superior customer experience, like cost risk reduction, newer, faster product development? I mean, which one really came first? I know that's not an easy question.
No, it's a good one, and I'm just going to remind all of our customers that joined us. Hopefully, you like this format much better than just giving you the traditional PowerPoint. But you know, certainly would love to make it more relevant for all of you. So please feel free to throw anything that you have in thoughts around our conversations here in chat, so we can pick them up and kind of weave it into the conversation. But it's actually a great question, Ryan, and it is a tough one. When I think about technology, here's what I tell you from technology in my 30+ years, what I found, for good or for bad, that the technical innovation actually happens first, because it takes a while for the stuff to mature, right? So I have to actually iterate on the technology to make it real to achieve the outcome that I did. And many times it took generations of technology to get there, right? Because what is it? Tougher math. And what does tougher math require? Tougher math using more data and statistical analysis requires a lot of compute. And frankly, let's just look at it. Even with the great innovation we've had, you know, generation over generation, now with 15 generations of PowerEdge server, you know, we still have a long way before we can emulate the human brain, right? And actually build out that full cognitive artificial intelligence using a neural network, right? We're making great strides, but we got a ways to go there. So by the way, you know, don't be afraid of Terminator or one of our friends coming to get us anytime soon.
Or hell for them.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it really was the technology, and the technology has been out there trying to solve some of these problems and emulate the human brain, and it just couldn't. And in fact, when I look at this, all of you probably, if you've been in IT for a while, probably follow Gartner and look at the trends of technologies, and you see, you know, what they kind of call the Gartner hype cycle, and kind of follow technology goes through a bell curve, right? And in that bell curve, it goes into what they call, after early adopters, it goes through a trough of disillusionment, because the technology never measures up to what the business wanted to achieve with that technology. So then everybody's like, oh, okay, well, it didn't quite do what I wanted it to. It's not good enough. And the technology curve then either goes back up, because now, okay, it disproved, now technology matures, and now I can actually learn how to adopt it and move it forward. Other technologies just die, right? And they have no immediate path, and they don't have any type of adoption. Artificial intelligence is clearly way past the trough of disillusionment. We're on the way up. Like, the growth rates behind artificial intelligence at this point permeating every single industry or vertical is massive. Back to what I said, of 53% of customers have some type of artificial intelligence happening. And we really think about it through what Chris just walked you through, of that continued technology improvements as well as the economic benefits, right? Because we all know technology generation over generation improves, and generally x86 remains at the same cost for better technology or goes down in price, right? Obviously, there's commodity times where things might fluctuate, but in generally it goes down. So because of those two areas, right? Hey, continued improvements in models. Oh, and by the way, NVIDIA and others in the market are doing a great job of providing software frameworks. This is what else has allowed it to get out of that trough of disillusionment, for you to take models and build them and make it real, right? So pre-trained deep learning models for you to go solve a problem from. I don't need to train something. I just need to model it slightly different for my business outcome. But if I'm just trying to do image recognition, there's already a pre-trained model for me to go off of, right? I don't need the deep data scientist and a huge neural network to get that work done. I can do that on a small Dell Precision GPU accelerated workstation, for example. That's where our sales team, and right, we actually use artificial intelligence to take a look at our book of business and understand assets, right, from a tech refresh perspective, and have better conversations with all of you, right, in your tech refresh schedules. So it's really taken us 60 years to get where we're at this point in technology and artificial intelligence. It's not new. If you didn't know that, AI has been around for 60 years, been longer than I've been in IT. But really, it's in the last 5 that we made significantly more progress than even the last 30. And looking forward, because of these software frameworks and technologies, the next 2 years promise to be exponentially better than even the last 5. So super excited to continue to see this evolution, help our customers solve these problems, and really, leverage technology as a competitive differentiator.
Yeah, I know you mentioned, technology innovation really being the thing that comes first. So Chris, I know we just launched the next generation level of our PowerEdge servers, in the market just in the last 2 months. And
Sure.
I'm really kind of interested if you could tell everybody a little bit about what we've done and what platforms we've put out there to really help optimize for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and even deep learning.
Sure. A good question there, Ryan. So thanks. As I talked about the 3 tenets earlier, really about the launch of last month, we call it the 17 on 17th, really. So basically, we launched 17 different platforms in terms of the compute perspective, all really developed for specific use cases and workloads in mind. And so when you talk about AI and machine learning and analytics type stuff, there's really 2 platforms where we feel that these are really beneficial to being able to do things for in the AI space. From an Intel perspective, you have the R750XA. XA, the nomenclature behind that is really extreme acceleration capabilities. And in our AMD platform, we have the XE8545. So you have 2 choices depending on your own use case and types of processes you need for your applications that are really highly developed for AI and analytic capabilities through acceleration. So that's key in driving some of these insights and the things that Alan just talked about from an AI perspective. We have platforms from both sides to be able to do that. And again, everything is NVIDIA certified capable systems through GPUs and the software from NVIDIA that Alan just mentioned. So when it comes to that, that's the main platform that we have. Again, from an adaptive perspective, it's really about workloads.
Perfect. So Alan, what do you think the primary needs are to support AI from a technology perspective?
Another great question, and certainly builds upon the foundations of things I talked about earlier. I think the important thing and the one thing to walk away from, if you've never heard this before, this is something you can take back to your business leaders and have better conversations with business and IT, right? It's really about what they call the 4 V's. And we think about the 4 V's, right? Think about big data and the 4 V's that surround that. The first one is around variety, right? We talked about structured and unstructured data source. So huge amount of data coming at you in different data types, especially now that we start looking at streaming. So that brings me to another V, velocity. Think about it, of all the sensor data. Chris alluded to all the sensor data we gather using iDRAC and OME in our autonomous compute infrastructure strategy to be able to go take action against that data, right? So you need the same thing. Hey, I've got all these new sensors coming into my, whether you're in retail and manufacturing or any healthcare, et cetera. Sensors are coming at you, right, in the physical world. That's what we call operational technology, or OT. And it's hitting your businesses, right? Not necessarily you and IT, but what are you doing to enable that OT to actually function and create value to your organization, right? So I think about that one. That's extremely important. And then when I think about it, it's kind of the veracity of data. Like, do I trust the data? I have lots of data, but at the end of the day, do I trust it? I'm not sure. Where did it come from, right? Even when we build our dashboards, it's always a question of what's the veracity of this data? How was it built? How was it modeled? And then we think about just the big challenge for all of us is where I kind of started. It's volumes of data, right? Massive data sets.
Oh, is that just me, Chris?
Yeah, I think I hear it too. So it might be on Allen's side.
Alan, I'm not sure we can't hear you, and I'm not sure what happened. Nope. It's like almost computer noise. Not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, while Alan tries to figure that out, I'll come back to what we were asking,
Sure.
Alan. But I guess.
Am I back?
There you are. There you go.
Right.
Now we can
There
hear
you
you.
go.
It was like go-to meeting, panicked.
Oh.
So I'm not sure what happened there. So apologize to the audience, but yeah, I think I left off on did I get through the V's?
You were talking about volumes of data, and then we kind of lost you.
Okay, okay, perfect. That's what I thought. And then what I was saying, so the 4 V's, the last one that's the most important, right, is really the 5th V that not everybody talks about, which is the value. So those are problems or challenges around managing the data. But at the end of the day, if I'm not getting any value out of it, the business doesn't care, right? So it's about the 5 V's and understanding that. And then we think about it in context of 3 areas. Proven algorithms and common platforms that I kind of described earlier, with deep learning models that are already pre-trained for you to achieve a result, right? Powered by incredible compute platforms like PowerEdge, really using accelerators from leaders in the market, right? Such as AMD and NVIDIA. And then we think about it as that large accelerated compute infrastructure and storage platforms to build that neural network, right? So I need to actually build that neural network in a low latent bound to emulate the human brain. And then finally, I really am going to develop these modern applications and frameworks in a container-based approach with my DevOps and AI IOps team, or maybe a team member, right? Depending on the size of your organization. And certainly at Dell Technologies, we're making that real for everybody, right? With Tianzu and certainly technologies like BitFusion, which allows you to share expensive GPU resources across your organization.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad we were able to hear that. So, Chris, I got another one for you on really in your marketplace. What do you think differentiates Dell from our competition? There's a lot out there today, and just kind of curious in your mind, what really makes us stand out?
Sure. When you think about it as being one of probably the largest technology company in the world, this kind of puts us in a unique position where, You know, we're industry leading in terms of supply chain and supply chain management capabilities. So this allows us to rapidly innovate into the market. You know, having the established relationship with the merchant silicon vendors, as we talked about a little bit earlier, really kind of sets us apart. You know, from a server perspective, and really from our entire data center platform perspective, we're really committed to the open standards platforms. You know, open source technologies, open source softwares and operating systems. Everything that we develop is based on those type of tenets. And really the idea is, as we go further down into the future, into the next generations, the current generation and the next generations of server and other technology platforms, we're really trying to integrate, you know, autonomy into the systems via our iDRAC solution, tying into our open manage enterprise to visualize and understand what's going on with the entire environment. And last but not least is really of our approach, I think, from a security perspective, really sets us apart from the other vendors out there, because we take all these tenets in mind as we build our server technologies.
Gotcha. So another one for you. I guess I'm going kind of back and forth here. I feel like I'm tennis matching you guys, but Allen, and again, if anyone has questions, please put it in the chat, and I'll ask the guys. But Allen, on your side, you know, another thing that I see a lot of is reference architectures when it comes to AI, and really utilizing data science pipelines. But how do you do that to speed up adoption and really increase success with this challenge?
I actually think it's a great building question from what we've discussed already, right? Of where, depending on where I'm at from an organizational perspective, how do I get started with AI, or how do I advance, or, you know, continue to build out a supportable architecture for a number of data scientists, right? Certainly where Dell Technology is, hey, we're not perfect either, but that's where we're at, right? Hey, we've got hundreds of data scientists across the organization now solving lots of tough problems, right? For us internally and for our customers and for our platforms, right? Leveraging artificial intelligence and things like ACE on VxRail and Cloud IQ in storage and open manage from a compute perspective with PowerEdge. But it really depends on, back to that journey, right? Where an organization is in their maturity level and their level of adoption of AI. It will really help guide what is the appropriate use of those application or software ISVs. Yes, I said software ISVs. You can actually take a software product and leverage it to achieve an outcome. NVIDIA has really been the leader in the market here with something they call their Inception program, where they've taken a number of software ISVs by vertical to solve these tough problems for you. So you can take a pre-packaged application, a standard off-the-shelf PowerEdge with accelerated NVIDIA GPUs, and achieve an outcome, and you need no data scientist or anybody to develop it for you. It's kind of what I've referred to as AI at warp speed, right, for the business, to really prove it out and look for, I always encourage businesses to look for their toughest challenge, right? What is the thing, if you went to the CEO and said, I could change this metric by 1%, what would be the impact? And if they said, hey, if I change it by 1%, the impact is massive in this area. This question I commonly love asking the business leaders, back to their top priorities, I'll go, okay, if that's going to be $1 million savings, how about we use artificial intelligence using intelligent video analytics to stop your shrinkage problem if you're a retail customer at self-checkout kiosk? Oh, by the way, there's an Inception partner for that. So that's how you make that real of warp speed AI. Once you start to advance and you do say, hey, I've got some investment, I have at least one data scientist and are trying to solve a problem, reference architectures can really help you, right? Things like the NVIDIA, a certified program that Chris alluded to earlier, that we have our platforms underneath that are supported from Dell Technologies, not just from a hardware perspective, but from what they call NGC, which is all those software frameworks I referred to from NVIDIA, to make that real, right? To pull out that deep learning model, and you have a starting point, right? I have a package now for the data scientists to go build something for the business. That was, frankly, how we got started with our data scientists within our team. And then finally, right, for that advanced company, like I said, where Dell Technologies is at this point, hey, look, we're continuing to permeate AI everywhere. I've got a number of data scientists, and what I want to do, well, they were all working on precision workstations on high performance GPU enabled workstations underneath their desk. Now I want to pull all that stuff down out of the desks, put them in the data center, right, for large models, and allow them to share those expensive GPU resources in the data center. So we have lots of different reference architectures depending on where you're at and what problem you're trying to solve. So we have you covered no matter which phase you're at. Please just reach out and ask for help from your GPL AE.
Perfect. Man, you seem to always kind of have a way to get going here. So I'm always appreciative to hear that. So Chris, one more for you, and really, you keep
Sure.
talking about autonomous compute and the capabilities of PowerEdge bringing kind of customer value and significant change. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those technologies really are?
Sure, absolutely. So when you think about PowerEdge compute, we really look at iDRAC, which is our remote management built into the system. Is really kind of a computer within a computer, if you will, and it really is the driving engine behind artificial intelligence going forward. And it really ties into the idea of that whole autonomous compute infrastructure as well, as I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier. The thing that we look about here is iDRAC. Built into iDRAC is a telemetry streaming capabilities. So you think about the Internet of Things and all the sensors and things that are actually built into the compute platform. iDRAC allows to take those and import those into Open Managed Enterprise or other third-party analytics such as Splunk, for an example, which allows to make decisions about what's going on not only in the system but the environment as a whole. iDRAC and Open Manage allows you to manage a couple servers all the way up to thousands of servers in a data center under a single pane of glass. So it's really based on intelligence and understanding what's going on to make important decisions from a server perspective. I think you look at also that, folks that are on the call today, many are probably utilizing things like vCenter. They may be utilizing Microsoft System Center. They may be using things like operational systems such as Ansible playbooks. All of these tie into iDRAC, into Open Managed Enterprise capabilities, and even things like Service Desk or ServiceNow, which we use in Dell Technologies for our own use case and break fix type stuff. So iDRAC, associated really with the intelligence and artificial intelligence, if you will, is one of the that sets us apart really in the server world, I think.
Perfect. Alan, I think a lot of people like to hear, Dell's a pretty big company, and what are you guys doing internally with AI? So that's a question I thought I'd throw out is, what are we doing? I mean, I think everybody kind of wants to know what's going on in the industry, and Dell's one of those that kind of leads the way. So.
No, another great question, Ryan, and I've alluded to it throughout the entire kind of session we've had here together in our fireside chat, but let me just kind of summarize it in these three categories. The first thing, and by the way, this is also what I would encourage all of you to start thinking about in your organizations of how would you do this in your service industry or vertical. Think about it of artificial intelligence in Dell. So we think about that of artificial intelligence, in Dell Technologies, and we've already talked about in our product set what that means. And I gave the example. Chris just said one, certainly with iDRAC and OME and PowerEdge, right? Building our autonomous compute infrastructure. And by the way, he kind of laid out a great storyline earlier of just like a self-driving car, we have a goal of reaching towards level 5 of true autonomous driving, right? We want to make the data center drive itself so you can focus on the business outcome, not on the technology. And that permeates everything we do at Dell Technologies. So that's one example in PowerEdge, but you might have some other investments from us in PowerStore, or PowerMax, or PowerScale. How about all of those harmonized in one setting in Cloud IQ, right? Being able to do the same thing. Think about it as a correlation engine, right? Where it started, now layering in artificial intelligence to be able to go take action. And maybe you don't trust the artificial intelligence yet, so we're not going to take the control away from you. You still have all the controls, but man, it would be great to get rid of that day-to-day, right? And really allow the elements of your data center to manage itself. And then when I think about outside of in Dell, think about on Dell. So this is what we do for all of you, right? In addition to baking it into our products, it's also what we alluded to earlier. It's about solutions and reference architectures that enable you, right, to build a proven architecture for your AI projects on Dell, right? That could be through that Inception partner program on an NVIDIA certified program, or it could be utilizing a large framework, right? Where you've got a number of data scientists leveraging Domino data science or Data Robot, or a more mature AI ops driven approach where you're trying to really drive AI across the organization and provide a development platform for everybody to leverage those expensive GPUs, right? Just like you did in the data center of leveraging VMs to drive down your operational expense. Same thing here, leverage those expensive GPUs, virtualize them, and drive down your cost as more and more people are consuming them. And then the final area that I'd say is think about this one, and these are things kind of underneath the covers. I don't think I gave a good example of this one earlier, but AI for Dell. So this is, think about it, of optimizing Dell's internal processes. One of them I kind of alluded to was, what we do within our sales organization, but I'll give one that affects you downstream from a services perspective. We are enabling through our, if you have any of our platforms that are familiar with Support Assist or ESRS, well, we have all that streaming telemetry data as a phone home for us to go take action against. Guess what? We make our systems more and more intelligent through the use of that streaming telemetry data. Because what do? For example, smart technology on hard drives and SSDs been around forever. Guess what? Technologies in that space, SSD, NVMe, etc., have all changed. Smart really hasn't progressed, right? It's not as smart as it once was. So we used artificial intelligence to be able to proactively monitor and look for failure rates across, the world's largest SSD and hard drive install base, right? Because we're the largest supplier of drives to the marketplace. So being able to provide that intelligence and be able to take proactive notification beyond what you get out of a baseline from, traditional manufacturers is huge value to you downstream. Happens underneath the covers. It helps us from a services perspective, provide you better service, and hopefully, right, gives you better loyalty back to Dell and improves our NPS score in the market, right? Hopefully you like us better and you're a net promoter for Dell Technologies.
Perfect. And one last one that I'll mention, we do have now what's referred to as Dell Digital, which is actually our own internal IT, where they'll actually talk to customers about how we're doing AI in our own environment. That is actually, you can work with the team here and GPL to actually get you in touch with that group. So that's kind of a new cool thing that we're doing as well. So I'm actually going to wrap up. I don't see any questions in the chat, unfortunately. So if you have any, please, before Alan finishes talking here with my last question, throw them into the chat. But really, I know we've covered a lot. We've gone through quite a bit on the technology side, as well as really kind of AI in general and how PowerEdge fits. And I know these are complex projects and they're really complicated. So I know everybody's really trying to figure out, how do I leverage AI to solve business problems, but where do I actually start? So I guess the question would be, where should people get started?
And I think that's encompassing of everything we've kind of talked about in this last 35 minutes or so. Let me kind of just walk you through that and just quickly remind you. So really need to align to the business, understand what the top priorities are at the business level, right? And really understand where we can help you achieve the highest ROI. Again, back to my favorite question, back to when I was running an IT shop and my 30-year journeys. Yes, I sat in your shoes and was a CIO and did some work with an organization. And one of the things that I always did was went back to the CEO and said, hey, if I could change this one metric by 1%, what would be the biggest ROI. And every time they had an answer, they immediately knew what it was. Great place to start because it's easy table stakes, right? I only have to move the needle 1% to go achieve something massive for the business, no matter what industry or vertical you're in. Beyond that, it's really understanding how to build that modern data management control plane that we talked about, understanding your applications and your structured and unstructured data sets that can help you build these artificial intelligence models from. What are those data sources, right, for me to achieve that outcome? I have to understand that from a business logic standpoint to give it to my data scientist to be able to do something with it. And then look for those areas, right, where what I just described to that 1%, where are processes that can be improved in the business, or costs to be reduced, or customer NPS scores that can be impacted, right? Every business is asking, where am I at my NPS score? How happy are my customers? I want them to be happy because happy customers buy more, right? So every business leader is asking where it's at. And ultimately, where can they increase new lines of revenue or profit? We're all looking for new lines, right? Hey, we got to continue to grow. If I'm going to continue to grow, and especially if you're a public company, continue to grow to keep our shareholders happy, what are those next areas, right? We're always looking forward to Dell Technologies. What are those next areas of innovation for us to help you solve those tough problems? And by the way, just like I said earlier, even if you don't have a data science bench, don't let it hold you back. You have software ISVs through that NVIDIA Inception program that I described across every single industry vertical, right? Pick a software package to go solve a problem. And by the way, as you would imagine, the software ISVs have really solved the toughest problems because they know it's the biggest market opportunity by vertical, right? They've identified those for you and kind of moved in. And if you don't know where to start, go take a look at the NVIDIA Inception program. Reach out to your GPL AE who will engage with us and really help us have a great conversation with you of what is your next step. And then finally, right, keep in mind all of these things we've talked about. If you do have a data scientist on the bench, really think about how do I take that next step with them, and really leverage all of the things we talked about from a software framework perspective, like NGC and pre-trained models, right? So that I can just integrate these new processes into the business and leverage as a competitive edge, right? No matter what industry or vertical you play in. So in summary, I would say those are the areas to think about. Think about how you align to the business and ensure you've got the right technology adoption for a modern modern data management control plane. If you're not there, those are 100% where you should start.
Perfect. Well, Alan, thank you. Chris, thank you. GPL team, thank you very much for today.
Thank you, everyone.
Very educational conversation, and hopefully you all found it very helpful. At this time, I'm actually going to hand it over to Seb from Topgolf, who is actually going to take the next step and help you guys have a lot of fun. So hope you found this helpful, and if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to your GPL AE, and they will get you started on this journey. So thank you so much for your time.